opening the meeting right now. You are so warm welcome to this Uptech, Uptech in Swinglish probably. And the hosts, that's us, that's Softhouse. Who are we? We are the down-to-earth experts working in development projects. We are the creative power of design. We do a lot of design. And also we are an accelerator for software-intensive product companies. So that's us, and often we do these three things at the same time, and we believe that is something unique. I am Sara in Skånska. That is where I am. I'm in Malmö, and that's our headquarters. So we have also 9 other offices spread across the Swedish very tall country from Luleå. Again, hi Luleå, I saw you, even you haven't chatted yet, but I saw some friendly faces up in Luleå, and down to Malmö, and also in Sarajevo. We have a very, very nice office there with extremely competent colleagues. So that's us, Softhouse. Today, if we take the next slide, we will talk about AI. Go figure. I guess that is why you're here. And very soon, I will ask my colleague Olof to share a little bit about what we do at Softhouse, of course, connected to AI. And then it is, again, my big pleasure and joy to hand over to Linus Ekenstam, who will, it will just be amazing, I'm sure. And then it will be time for a Q&A. So let's get started. Olof.
Okay, hello everybody, everyone. My name is Olof Bengtsson, and just as Sara, I'm also located in Malmö, just a few floors above you at the moment, I think. And I would like to start this off by talking a little bit about AI at Softhouse. And as you've said before, we have done this one time before. So I don't want to say the exact same thing again, but I have a really nice slide to start it off with, which is going to be the same. So if you can change, here it comes. And it's a nice presentation of some of the people who are working with AI or have a very deep interest in AI here at Softhouse, where we have built up a community for a little over 3 years since we started to focus more on AI here at Softhouse. And we're a very varied group with varying experiences and competences, spanning from natural language processing to data scientists and people with just pure interest. And we have an internal Slack channel where we share what we find, and so that we can learn from each other. And we also have monthly lunch meetings where we sit down and discuss the latest advances in AI, which I think is really nice. But I would like to go into one case a little bit more specifically. And I think this is something that you might address later, Linus. But it's a very popular application of AI, which is called RAG, which stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation, which essentially means that you can create your own ChatGPT from your own documents. So, for example, we have done this in-house first, where we had our employee handbook, which said, normal working hours, for example, and how many vacation days we have per year, and so on. So instead of having to read a, 75-page document or something, we created this chatbot so that people who were new at Softhouse could ask the bot whenever they had a question, instead of having to search through these vast amounts of texts. And we have actually done this for a customer as well, very similarly as I just explained, for a company called Go Ahead. And just as we thought that they wanted to have this chatbot for their newly employed personnel. so that they could ask any question anytime and always get an answer, and never having to be afraid to be a burden of someone more senior, and never having to feel stupid by asking the same question 3 times, which at least I have done many times when I was new here at Softhouse and didn't really know what to do. And this is a very, very good example of how AI can help you increase productivity in your maybe not company if you're working by yourself, but in how you do your day-to-day work, because it's quite low hanging fruit, which can have a very big impact in productivity, which I think is really great. So that's why I wanted to highlight this specific example. But I think it's with those words, I think it's time for me to actually hand over the floor to Linus to talk more in depth about many cool things.
Thank you. Let's see. Do we have I'm presenting. Someone bring up my screen, or is it already? There we go. Okay.
There it is.
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Olof. I realized we're like, we're gonna have to go fast today, but there's a lot of things to cover. I think I'm just gonna start by introducing myself a little bit for those who don't know me. It's not gonna be very long. I write predominantly on the internet about AI, and I try out a lot of AI products. So I basically spend my days immersed in this field. When I started over 2.5 years ago, there wasn't many people doing this, but now we are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are actively trying to keep up with all the advancements in the land of applied artificial intelligence. So I'm not a researcher. I'm not really a developer. My background is a designer. I've been working within the tech ecosystem for almost 20 years. And I've always been curious. I think that's the driving force for me. And if we look a little bit about what that's led to in the past 6 months, this is some stats from my social media just to give you a little bit of insights into that I'm talking, but I'm not just talking shit. So the people actually do enjoy the content that I create. So with that, I'm not going to spend too much time about me. I'm just going to dive into some of the cool things that's been going on. We're going to start by looking at something here called Grok. It's a platform that uses open source models and run them on their hardware. We'll see if this video plays. We'll get some audio. Okay, here we go. Do you hear the audio? Can I get some thumbs up or not?
No, we do not.
No, I don't hear the audio either, which is not great. Okay, we just have to see what's going on here, and then I'll see if we can get the audio to work on the next. Maybe I'll just reshare my screen. So essentially what's going on here is the older version of Llama 3.1, being used with Grok's interface. And one of the key things to keep in mind here is the tokens per second output. These kind of levels of speed we're also seeing with the new Llama 3.2 model. And speed is a feature in many cases where you want to achieve a lot of interesting computational acts of, let's say, agentic workflows, or you want to do things really fast. And speed allows you to do a lot of LLM tasks really quickly. So we see this kind of shift where some things takes longer. If we look at OpenAI with 1.0, it's like a model that thinks a lot. Same with Claude. And then we look at something like Grok, where you might want to do classification on a large data set and you want to do it quickly, or you have a very multi-step workflow in your app that requires you to handle a lot of data quickly. So that is something that you can do with Grok and their hardware. I'm just going to try to restart the screen sharing and see if I can get the audio to work. Sorry about this. We did check this before we went on. So I'm going to stop sharing and I'm just going to restart sharing again. Here we go. Share audio. Share. I'm just going to double check system audio. Sound. Audio. Audio. All good. Let's try again. Always something. So if we look at the token speed here, we can see that we're getting incredible speed. So tokens per second here, with a smaller model, it's around 500 tokens per second, and then on a larger model, 1,200 tokens. So what does this mean in layman's term? Essentially, I can compute a lot of text really quickly. So you can then imagine all the use cases that comes with this at real-time applications, basically. So we can do anywhere between 300 and 1,200 tokens. We can do simultaneous translation. So here we can have like an audio model grabbing what I'm saying and then in real time putting the captions underneath here really quickly. That would be like a simple use case. So anyone viewing with any language could see the captions flowing in more or less with zero latency. We can do really large kind of data set manipulations. So like you can have all my medical data. Let's say I look at my Apple Health data and there's like records there, tens of thousands of inputs. I can basically put that into the LLM, and within seconds I can have the LLM tasking and doing work on that data. And then depending on the model size, the model weight, then you can have higher accuracy and you can do more, and you can implement this in your apps and your workflows. So that's really cool. I want to show you a little, jumping to another thing that's also happening now is in the deepfake landscape. We have a lot of things happening here, both good and bad. I wanted to show you this. There's no audio to this one. It's just a webcam driving, a dude driving his Elon Musk fake with just a webcam as an input. We have another one that I want to look at, which is a researcher that runs a avatar, basically a female avatar, only using his webcam as input. So the key thing here is that deepfakes has been around for a long time, and the kind of signal to noise ratio here to keep being actively looking for is that before it took a lot of compute power, and we had to, someone that had a lot of insights into how to create deepfakes had to put their mind into, I want to create this deepfake and I'm going to put a lot of hours into making it look real. Now we're getting to the point where you only need a webcam, you only need a small app that you can download, and nobody really can stop this. So all of a sudden we need to be very vigilant about deepfakes, because this is what it is today, and then you can imagine 1 or 2 steps down the road where like this technology has been improved even further. Impersonation would be really tricky to kind of deal with. So if we then start to connecting more dots, we have advanced voice mode.
Hey, I want you to tell me a bunch of tongue twisters, but I want you to take no pauses in between words.
All right, here we go. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Key sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. How many peck of pickled peppers did a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? If a woodchuck could chuck wood, could he chuck wood if a woodchuck could chuck wood? How did the woodchuck get his woodchuck wood? He sells seashells, but that was definitely a mouthful. Did any of them trip you up? Or did you get through them all smoothly?
Okay, I want you to do it again, but way faster and without taking any breaths or pauses.
I wish I could, but I need to breathe just like anybody speaking. Want to give it a shot yourself and see how fast you can go?
Okay, well then go ahead and tell me more tongue twisters without taking pauses.
Sure thing. Fuzzy Wuzzy was a bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't a very good bear. Fuzzy Wuzzy wasn't a very fuzzy Wuzzy. How can a clam cram in a clean cream can? 6 slippery snails slid slowly seaward. Betty Butter bought a bit of butter, but the butter was too bitter, so she bought a new bit of butter to make the bitter butter better.
Okay, we're just going to stop there. So if we start to connect the dots here, we can see that it becomes a lot easier to visually impersonate and do things that are bad, but also obviously good. There's 2 sides to this. You can have agents that, do customer support that are really looking human and do really good work. But then on the other side, we also have audio models becoming really good at doing real-time voice. And this is not just in English, by the way. Like if you now, like yesterday or the day before yesterday, Europe got access to OpenAI's advanced voice mode, which allows you to talk to OpenAI super fluidly. You can talk to ChatGPT like a normal conversation in Swedish or in German, whatever language that you speak. It even does really weird Swedish dialects or accents, and it does it really well. You have to kind of like work with the model a little bit to kind of get it to do those things, but we're getting beyond the thing where like all of these things work really well only in English. They work really well in any language, period, if they're a large language. Maybe less so in smaller, smaller languages that don't really have that much representation in the data sets yet, but we can fairly, with high confidence, say that like in at least 160 or 200 languages, these things work really well. And you can imagine the good that can be done with this. So like if I can have a normal conversation with a model in my language about anything, and also these things are available to build on with APIs, right? Like again, like communication will be so much easier. We would talk through across boundaries without really having an issue. You can do mass kind of educational things where I can generate educational material for you, for your specific learning habits or the way that you want to do things. And then you will have your own teacher assistant. Like there's just so many things from like education to medical, that everything is just going to be flipped upside down because of these kind of different trends within different categories of AI just converging. And I think this year and next year, we're going to see, like, we are seeing it this year, but at the beginning of next year and the end of next year, we're going to see a lot of products come to place where all these things work in parallel and together. I wanted to look at another thing here. This is a video of a fake Volvo commercial. Let's see if it plays. Should play. Yeah. This is made by one guy in one day using off-the-shelf generative AI tools and a little bit of skills.
Volvo for life.
All right, maybe that end scene is not that great, but the key thing here is one person did this in 24 hours, and also leveraging a lot of the things that has been off the shelf for the past year, but are getting a lot better. So even if this is not like the end commercial that Volvo goes up and do, it's like, imagine the time saved in just communicating the idea of this commercial. Like if this was done in a traditional way, there would have been months and months of work just trying to get through the planning phase. Now it's like, it's one day's worth of work, which means it also really holds less, like it holds a lot less value internally as well, because if we don't like it, we can just do another one. And you can do many examples in that same time period as you had before, where you might have spent months doing the same thing, and you wouldn't have had the same level of output either. You would have had storyboards, you would have had mood boards and art direction, but you would not have like the real thing that you could look at. So again, like speed, is the way that we work, just everything just changes rapidly. And if we try to like put these things together and do like, what does AI generated content look like when it's done really well? So I wanted to show you my friend Varun. He's an influencer from India, and none of these are real. It's like videos trained on
Realme demoed a 320 watt supersonic charging system that can charge your smartphone from 0 to 100%.
So not only is the video of him not real, the audio of him is also not real. It's like cloned, so obviously with his permission. We'll see if we can get another
This
one
is
on
Grain
display.
Weevil, a small robot claiming to save thousands of farmers' lives worldwide. Every year, nearly 25 farmers lose their lives in mind-blowing prompting tricks. Even more LLMs, like 1 in 5 of these accidents involve third one just feels illegal to know.
So what's interesting here is he doesn't do any of these videos, right? He has an editorial team that has access to his models. They can be really quick. They can like create these content for social media and have it up within minutes of something being like lifted from embargo, or being taking the rounds on the internet and becoming viral. As like a thing based on that is like he's managed to grow his social presence from like a small account to almost 1 million followers in less than a year, because like he has this organization that's just able to use his brand to create this really good quality content over time, without him having to be in front of the camera all the time. He does also do content where he's in front of the camera, but this is where like the blending of like traditional media production and traditional content creation with kind of these new tools kind of come together. So audio is not him, it's fake, it's AI generated. Video is not him, it's AI generated. So we can see like a thread here, like where the technologies, they become better, like the LLMs become faster and better and more capable. The ways that we do video becomes easier. The way that we do audio becomes easier. So this whole generative AI field has just been exploding in the past 6 months. I'd say like we've seen the most insane gains from the inception a few years back. So I think all these numbers should be up to date. Like these are the latest generations of everything that's on the market. And if we compare to where we were, I'd say like 3.5 years ago, the left was the state of the art. So if you ask the model, an AI model, to generate an avocado share, this would be the actual size of the image, by the way, like 256 by 256 pixels. It's really hard to discern whether or not this is a chair made of an avocado, but let's say it is. It's an artistic expression of it. And then on the right, this is what we have like state of the art today. But the image is so big that I couldn't really fit it on the slide. So if we try to zoom in to like the real pixels, this is what we have. This is like the unupscaled version directly out of the AI model. And obviously now there's AI techniques that allow us to upscale this even further. So like enhance the pixels, let's say, make the whiskers even more detailed, make the eyes even more detailed. So like there are multiple ways of like getting AI generated images to look extremely well and work in all sorts of environments and cases, even for like really big billboard prints and all that stuff. So if we look at this, for example, all these are current state-of-the-art images generated from models. I think these ones are Flux, Midjourney, and Imagine 3 from Google. And then here's another example of like some interior photo. Like you'd have to be really good at architecture visualization to be able to do this. Now you're able to create this type of content by having a bunch of reference images, being able to write a really simple prompt, and there you go. You can start generating hundreds, if not thousands, of images, and then just use your own ability to curate to get the best stuff. And then things that hasn't worked really well in the past is like text in photos. Flux came out from the Black Forest, let's see if I say this right, Black Forest Labs, which is like an offshoot of the people that made Stable Diffusion, which was another really popular open source model for generating images. And Flux kind of solves a lot of these problems. So now we're able to create images that has text in them, and we can do all sorts of weird things. And again, with APIs on scale, like it's not just one single person sitting and plugging in things on the keyboard. So this kind of puts us in a very new, interesting position, because this is open source, right? And we can see how X, for example, or Twitter, they implemented Flux into their platform on Grok. So Grok is their proprietary model, and to generate images on Twitter and X, you use Flux, but it doesn't have any guardrails. Basically, it's just off the hinges, because that's kind of the stance that that X is taking, that like anything goes. But there's like a lot of things to take into consideration here, because I can also download a Flux model and run it on my own hardware. So if I'm a bad actor, if I'm a good actor, I can do all sorts of weird things. And all of a sudden, it's like really tricky to kind of trust images. And if we don't trust images, then like, what are we going to do? Because most of the things that we communicate on the internet is images or videos. And we're getting to a very interesting crossroads where, it's just going to be extremely tricky to keep up. So on that note, we're just going to look at something that's really, really new. This is Runway Act 1. So that brings together like the kind of AI generatedness that we see in these models that generate like video, but also with human acting. A little bit like what we saw in one of the first slides with driving a fake or deep fake avatar. So we're just going to play this video, see if we get some audio on this as well. Here we go.
Am I looking in here?
What? You're gonna fire me because there's hot milk everywhere on the floor of the coffee shop? I mean, it's one latte. It's not that big of a deal.
Everything's fine. Everything's totally great. This is gonna be the best day ever.
Smashed my phone the other night.
And you know how much I love that phone.
Okay, all right. Just breathe. Okay, maybe you don't breathe that hard. Who knew there were so many kinds of beans to choose from? Fava, black, kidney, butter, white beans.
you're surprised. Oh, wow.
I'm beginning to think that you don't understand the gravity of this situation.
You came all the way down to the Department of Motor Vehicles and didn't bring your driver's license?
Settle down. Everyone, settle down, please.
I don't know how to be sad without closing my eyes. Perfect. We got it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is it.
All right, who's next?
So here again, where the signal to noise here is like all of these things are coming together nicely. And the big actors, like in this case, this is made by Runway, and this is called Act 1. So there's no motion capture required, like there's no rigging required. There's none of this. You just have a camera, you upload the source material, and then you can start to use your own reference materials or prompt or whatever it is that you want to do to create your kind of looks. And then you can just go crazy about it. So like a year ago when we did, when we looked at like AI generated video, there was a lot of issues. Like it was temporal consistency didn't work, like morphing and weird artifacts and very not really useful. But now we're getting into, just 12 months later, we're getting into the realm of like, okay, this is actually really useful for a lot of things. Maybe not everything, but it's only been 12 months and there's just so much stuff happening that it's really tricky to just keep up in general. And if we look at the kind of the shift that like we saw a year ago, was a lot about like just prompting and like just getting AI to generate stuff out of the blue, like no real control. And many questions were asked like, oh, but I want to use my own images. I want to do this. And how can I make this work in my workflows, etc. And then now we have stuff like this. It's ideogram canvas. Is another video I'm going to show you. Let's see, play straight away. So here we can see like a product that's not Adobe, because obviously Adobe is doing all this stuff as well, and they have all the eyeballs that they deserve. But I want to show something different, and here we can see like how a small team, a capable team, can build using all the available kind of APIs and proprietary information as well to kind of create the product that all of a sudden can do all these things that people were asking for just a year ago and do it really well. So the whole way that we work creatively is also changing because of the tooling that we get access to. And the things that was really hard to do a year ago that required like a lot of kind of workarounds and a lot of hours, now it's just like seamless, it's plug and play, and there's plenty of different tools to pick from. And Adobe Max was held just a few days ago, where they showed off some of the things that they are working on. And there's no shortage in innovation happening in the entire kind of creative field. And just as we have open source models with photo production or generative photos, we do see a lot of open source models in the video space as well that are getting really good. And again, open source, closed source, like there's a lot of trade-offs, but I think that the open source system is like the open source community is currently driving a lot of the kind of innovation that we're seeing. Meta has been the forefront as well with their open source LLMs. I just want to show you this because it's quite impressive. This is also a model that you can download. You can load it. So this is Mochi 1. So this is a open source Apache 2.0 licensed video model. it's super impressive, because if we look at what happened with the kind of image, like text to image kind of pipeline from 3 years ago to where we are today, we kind of reached a hyper realistic phase where like you can generate anything and it's hyper realistic. Now we're just fine tuning and making sure things are getting incrementally better. We're seeing the same kind of thing happening with video. Just a year ago, it was really, really bad in my opinion, and then we saw some things getting announced that was like, wow, how is this even possible? Things have not yet been released, and now we're seeing more and more models actually coming out and becoming available, and then all of a sudden we see open source versions where it's like, okay, the way that we do motion and video is going to change dramatically as well, because we can learn from what happened with photos and text to photos and text to images, and we see the same kind of trend being applied to video. We're still a bit behind, but we can just, like, I'm not going to say assume, but we can see where the trend line is going. If we start to look at some of these things in comparisons, like virtual try-on a year ago was difficult because like it was hard to kind of keep consistency with me. For example, if I wanted to try things on, it was really tricky to do multiple product things and trying out like multiple things in one go. Here, for example, I have two models, one model that's trained on me and one model that's trained on the sunglasses from Meta. And as you can see, I can just put them together and I can create these ultra realistic images of me trying these products out. This image doesn't exist. I never had these clothes on. I never tried this. I never took these photos. These are just AI generated images of me trying out these sunglasses. And this is done by using a company called Let's, LETZ.ai. And there are plenty of other companies doing the same thing, but it's really powerful. And you can imagine one use case, I keep talking about this quite a lot, like one use case in the e-commerce business, especially in fashion, is that there's a really high return rate. This is not good for the environment. It's not good for the bottom lines for a lot of these companies. And if you could do virtual try-on way better than, let's say, AR virtual try-on, because that's just never going to work properly. But if I can like see something on the internet, there's a little button say the virtual try-on, I click that and all of a sudden I see like 10 photos of me in that garment, or 10 photos of me with that product, or, you know, wearable or jewelry or whatever it is. And because I trained the model, I also know what type of scenarios or situation I want to be in. And all of a sudden, like you might have cured like a multi-billion-dollar problem. I think the return cost for any company right now is 20% of their sales online. That's 20% gets returned. It's a massive cost for them that's incurring because of that. And because of that, prices needs to be more expensive because they need to somehow recuperate the cost of returns. Even if you could bring that number down a few percentages, you would help big companies save plentiful of money. So it's another example of me trying out those glasses. But this could work for any garment. So as we will see here, for example, this is a website selling very expensive cotton pajamas. And here is that pajamas being virtually tried on a model. This person does not exist. It's an AI model, just for purposes here, just to demonstrate. Here's another one, a family shot where there's two people in the same shot, and the pajamas is now a virtual try-on. So if we look at, this is the images that used to train the model on the pajamas, and this is the results of that pajamas being used on an actual person. So this is a fake image, fully AI generated, did not exist. So I think that kind of concludes the generative AI part of this. There's plenty of more. I can probably speak about this for a full day. I tried to pick some of the most impressive things that also kind of weave a little bit of a red line through, and also kind of picks out some signal in all the noise that is out there. So large language models. Oh my God, this is like it's a really, really tricky landscape at the moment. There's just so much going on. If you asked me a year ago, I would say like it's going to be a winner-take-all type situation. I think I changed my mind quite a bit. We're seeing the landscape getting very, very broad. There's different models for different things. There's different platforms for different things. While they're all kind of pushing in the same direction, I feel that it's no longer like one company that will win. Or two companies that will win. I think there will be a plethora of companies, predominantly the big ones, but there will be new upcoming companies that will challenge the big ones as well. So if we look at what's going on in general, we see that on benchmarks and scorings, the models, they don't keep the #1 position for many days anymore. So this has happened in the last 6 months, where we can see how long a model stays in the first position. So as the models progress, we can see that they only keep the top position for a matter of weeks, not even that, right? Like we have 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. So speed and model kind of deployment is going absolutely nuts. There's this nice little visualization by Peter. The time scale here is up until August this year. I should update this. This is 15 months of language models and their ELO scores. So ELO scores is basically just like a benchmark where they're competing against each other. It's not the perfect way to compete, but it shows what's going on. Everything is going up and to the right, and there's more and more players entering the field. And this is just the top kind of layer. If you go and look at the ELO benchmarks and you look at the tables, there's hundreds of LLMs. And actually, from the top one that's like scoring right now a little bit above 1,350, I think, and to something that scores in the same vein that these models just scored 6 months ago, there's just so much to pick from. It's insane. So we're also getting to the point where we look a little bit into the next six to 8 months. Will kind of be a quite huge test. I think after the elections in the US now, we're going to start to see more and more things getting kind of deployed as well, I think. A lot of companies are holding back. That we're entering kind of a new phase of language models. We're starting to see it with O1 preview from GPT, from ChatGPT or OpenAI. We're also starting to see it now with Claude, introducing more stuff, so that's Anthropic. But I can imagine we're going to get a quite hectic 2025. There's just so much stuff that's happened in the past 2 years, especially with multimodality, having one model that can handle any type of input, audio, text, video, etc. We're going to see a lot of things go pretty much ballistic, I think, in the next year. Another thing to keep in mind is like where the capabilities and the kind of effectiveness of the models is increasingly going up. The cost of using the model, the actual inference cost, is also coming down more or less at the same rate. Actually, it becomes cheaper faster than it gets better. But like to the point where like a year ago, you had to care a lot about optimization in your code. You had to care a lot about like if I'm building stuff with these tools, I need to care about how much it's actually going to cost me. Now it's more about how do I make the best thing do the thing that I wanted to do. And I can kind of factor in a cost decline over time. So that's also super interesting, more kind of signal there. Then we do have the kind of winner takes all kind of situation, which is interesting because I just said that I don't believe that's going to be the case. And I think this shows that this is the case currently. But what's happening is that most of these things on the right here are brand new, or they haven't been around for that long, or they're competing against ChatGPT. And ChatGPT got big because they were big at just the right time. There's a lot of really interesting things going on at OpenAI, to like say the least. And I wouldn't be surprised, if like their kind of expansiveness, it will start to contract, and we will start to see other players out there grabbing more and more market shares. If we look at search, for example, I know Google is big, massive, it is a behemoth in the space, but I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see like Perplexity actually gaining a lot of traction over Google, for example. So in Europe, we have the EU Act. There's a lot of weird things. Maybe now with the latest kind of report coming out from the European Union, we might see some deregulation. But as stands now, we have the EU Act, and there's some interesting limitations. So as soon as we pass a certain threshold in terms of compute power for the training ratio for the models, there is like a lot of things that needs to be compliant, for good and for bad. I'm in the camp that there's a lot of things that needs to be removed, because otherwise we're just going to stop. We're not going to be competitive this side of the pond. So that's an interesting thing as well to keep in mind, that we're passing these thresholds more or less. Any model now probably forward will pass this threshold. So I mentioned Perplexity. I'm not sure if anyone is using it, but I just want to show you a quick video of Perplexity. Perplexity is like a search type tool, or like where knowledge begins is the tagline. It really is a way to like supercharge your search or supercharge your knowledge inquiries, that makes Google look really bad a lot of times. Here's their multi-step reasoning, where they see a lot of interesting things here. Imagine doing this in Google. You'd spend hours synthesizing results manually. Yeah, so if you're not using Perplexity, I would urge you to actually go and give it a try. Just looking at time, we're looking good. Okay, so Anthropic Claude. This is a long video. I'm not sure I'm going to play the entire video, but I'm going to start playing a little bit of it. But what's interesting here is that all these companies are kind of doing their own innovation in their own fields, and everyone is kind of finding their niche. And with Anthropic, they have launched an API that allows their AI to control the computer screen without kind of knowing anything. You just show things and you do things displaying the screen, and by doing that, the kind of model learns the task at hand. So we're just going to check this. I think we're going to have time to watch.
I'm Alex. I lead developer relations at Anthropic, and today I'm going to be showing you a coding task with computer use. So we're going to be showing Claude doing a website coding task by actually controlling my laptop. But before we start coding, we need an actual website for Claude to make changes to. So let's ask Claude to navigate to Claude.ai within my Chrome browser and ask Claude within Claude.ai to create a fun 90s themed personal homepage for itself. Claude opens Chrome, searches for Claude.ai, and then types in a prompt asking the other Claude to create a personal homepage for itself. Claude.ai returns some code, and that gets nicely rendered in an artifact on the right-hand side. That looks great, but I want to make a few changes to the website locally on my own computer. Let's ask Claude to download the file and then open it up in VS Code. Claude clicks the Save to File button, opens up VS Code, and then finds the file within my Downloads folder and opens it up. Perfect. Now that the file is up and running, let's ask Claude to start up a server so that we can actually view the file within our browser. Claude opens up the VS Code terminal and tries to start a server. But it hits an error. We don't actually have Python installed on our machine. But that's all right, because Claude realizes this by looking at the terminal output and then tries again with Python 3, which we do have installed on our machine. That works. So now the server's up and running. Now that we have the local server started, we can go manually take a look at the website within the browser. And it looks pretty good, but I noticed that there's actually an error in the terminal output, and we also have this missing file icon at the top here. Let's ask Claude to identify this error and then fix it within the file. Claude visually reads the terminal output and then opens up the Find and Replace tool in VS Code to find the line that's throwing the actual error. In this case, we just ask Claude to get rid of the error entirely, so it will just delete the whole line. Then Claude will save the file and automatically rerun the website. So now that the error is gone, let's go take a final look at our website, and we can see that the file icon has disappeared and the error is gone as well. Perfect. So that's coding with computer use and Claude. This took a few prompts now, but we can imagine in the future that Claude will be able to do tasks like this end to end.
So I think the key thing here is like this was a engineering example. There's more examples from Claude that are less engineering heavy, and the end here is the signal to look for is like, now it takes a little bit of prompting, but we can imagine this being done end to end. So we got Copilot from Microsoft shown off like a year and a half ago, still really not that powerful, and it doesn't do a lot of things. And now we're seeing these third-party non-operating system companies being able to build functional, I'd say Copilots, but like systems that are able to be helpful. And also maybe not for the biggest use case for me would not be to like sit and use this. It's like feels like an abstraction over the fact that I can use the computer the way that I want to. But if there are things that I've never done with my computer, or things, programs, just workloads that I've never really been able to do, this is an amazing tool. Like all of a sudden, it's like I'm having this really nice coworker that can walk something through for me. Like I see what happens, I see what it does, I can see the reasoning behind things, and it's just a way to learn stuff. And then the next layer to this is like, if I'm disabled, if I don't have any hands, if I'm stuck with the current kind of aids that are out there, and you look at this and you'd be like, oh, this is going to change the lives for so many people that needs this type of technology way more than I need it. And then if you draw out a line that's long enough, you can just see how this is probably going to change how we use computers from the ground up. Like my kids, for example, will probably never use a computer the way that I use it, like with a keyboard and a mouse and all these peripherals. For them, it's just going to be a completely different experience, which is not too crazy to think, because like we've been through like these tech cycles before. Like my parents never used a computer, so why would I assume my kids would use a computer the way that I do? So it leaves us into like this step of engineering, which is like my final part of this, like almost final part. I'm not going to show any more videos, but there's this, obviously all these capabilities that I've talked about is just everywhere in parallel tracks happening all at the same time. Cursor is like an IDE, like a developer interface, like an app for developers to build and write code, which is AI first. So it's like a fork of VS Code, and it allows developers to be really quick, and also non-developers to start actually doing developing work, which is like fascinating. There's this whole subgenre on the internet of like people learning how to use Cursor, building things with Cursor, and they're not coming from a coding background. All sorts of praise for this product in general. And then we have another really interesting engineering tool, which is V0, really good for rapid prototyping. So V0 allows you to kind of create graphical user interfaces really quickly from just prompting, and then they basically just work. And it integrates with Vercel, it integrates with your kind of existing coding environment, and you can just quickly get stuff done. You might have to like refine it for production. You might have to do things with it to really make it work, at the very end. But similar to how video and like generative audio and video and images are accelerating how we produce stuff in that field, Cursor, V0, other coding tools is accelerating how engineering is being done and who is contributing to engineering. So kind of the Venn diagram of everyone in their isolated silo is kind of slowly pushed together, and we get more overlap. More overlap means better communication, and better communication leads to better outputs. Yeah, I'm just going to show this. We're just going to jump straight away to my last piece, which is customer support. This is an interesting area for many reasons. Obviously, like customer support is huge. It employs a lot of people worldwide, but we're all seeing a lot of job displacements and a job kind of augmentation happening in this field. And I think that's a kind of precursor to what's going to happen in a lot of different fields of work, but we're seeing it happen here first. For example, Olof talked about RAG, and I think support use cases is an extremely well-positioned use case where RAG becomes extremely important, because there is domain-specific information in each company, and you can scale. All of a sudden, we can scale that up. So like, H&M, for example, or Klarna, or IKEA, like they're all very different organizations, but they all have the same need for customer support. And if they can have their own data layer in the stack and kind of like AI agents taking care of most of the groundwork, then there's no need for support agents anymore. We don't have to outsource to call centers. We don't have to do a lot of that thing. We can keep like some support staff that will handle the most extreme edge cases, but for everything else, it's just full automation. And it leads to really interesting situations. Obviously not good for work, but like, again, we've had these kind of scenarios happen in the past before where certain roles just gets obliviated through the rise of technology. Here, I think this is fairly safe to say that this is going to happen. Human interaction is just going to go down. Also augmented responses from AI, and AI agentic responses is just going to continue to go up. Here's the resolution rate. This is really interesting. This is from Intercom Fin. If you look at like the numbers before and you look at the numbers now, so resolution rate is increasingly extremely fast. And if we just take some notes from around the internet, we can see that this is not an isolated instance. This is more or less happening across the board. This note in particular is something that I find very, very, it's actually old news already. It's from February this year, but Klarna has an AI-assisted chatbot or customer support bot. And if we look at this, the final row here is what really kind of makes this a no-brainer for any business operating. They will save 40 million in profits just by implementing this, and they will have something that does the equivalent of 700 full-time work, like people working full-time. That's if that is not a signal to noise, then I don't know what is. This is obviously not super good, but it is happening. And I think being vigilant about this and paying attention is going to be important, because otherwise you're just going to pay attention. It's going to be too late. And then it's like, what are the other jobs that are going to get affected by this? What are the other low-hanging fruit where AI is going to have this type of really quick and instant impact? Those are the things that are less easy to find. So I think, sorry for going a little bit over time. The conclusion is that this is happening now. It doesn't happen next year. It doesn't happen the year after. It has been going on for a few years. So we're in the middle of it, and it's accelerating. So if we meet again a year from now, most of the things that I've been talking about today will look old. Probably going to be, really hard to just keep up with everything. And this is just a tiny amount of what I could squeeze into like a 40-minute me just rambling monologue. But that being that, I'm opening up the floor for some questions. I know we're really short on time, but thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully see some faces.